start going down those rabbit holes.
Right. But at the same time, focus on the problems you can fix. Right. I'm in a position to fix some. I have talents I can put towards group efforts at others, and some things I'm just like,
leave it for somebody else.
Carry on some soldier that's doing the work. Like if I can find one, I'll kick them what I can.
Well, that's kind of the beauty about today is there are people fighting those bigger problems. So you can focus on your local issues more. You can kind of stay abreast of what's going on more broadly, but you are able to focus on.
Yeah. I mean, there are also, you ever hear the story of like, the professor fills up the jar and comes and like takes out an empty jar and fills it up with, big old chunky rocks and looks at the class and says, "Is this full?" And all the class says, "Well, of course." And then he pulls out a bunch of smaller rocks, pours them in, and they fall in through the cracks. "Is this full?" "Well, yes, of course." Then he pulls out some pebbles and puts them in. And of course, go and then sand, and then fills it with water. And he's like, "Now, as the surface tension is brimming over the top, now it is finally full." Right? So, I mean, you have to focus on large things, especially that are going to hit local, right? Because the reason they're large things is because they have broad scale impact, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't be a large thing. And because a lot of what we deal with on the small scale is handling whatever's going on as from those large scale impacts. And that's, just living on a globe, right? I mean, there are global issues, there are national issues, there are regional issues, there are state issues, there are town issues, there are issues in my house, there are issues in my body, right? And each of them has their own set of solutions and set of people who should solve them and people whose opinion I think should be valued on them. My own body, me, my doctor, maybe my wife, everybody else can get the fuck out, right? Including and especially the government. Right.
Yeah, that's another one of those issues you think we would have solved by now, like the water rights issue. But still, we're chipping away at it.
Globally, a lot of people have tried a lot of different things, and some of them work better than others, right? And that is also how we develop as a species. Like, we try a bunch of different things and look around and see who's doing it best, and then say, "Oh, well, maybe we should do it more like that. Yeah, let's go copy their notes," right? That's science, right? That is experimentation and peer review, right?
And there is an argument that sometimes you're going to break things. That's just a byproduct of trying to instigate change.
Sure. Change is breaking things. Breaking it with intention is important. Breaking it with knowledge of impact is important, right? It's the difference between grinding something to dust and knocking it into a faceted gem.
What do you make of all these people burning Teslas? Have you been following that?
Yeah.
Speaking of breaking things, what is your stance on that?
Well, first, vandalism isn't violence. Let's go real clear on that. And as I'm pretty sure if we looked up the 198 methods of nonviolent action, corporate sabotage is on the list, right? It occupies the same space for me as sabotaging logging equipment on contested forests, as smashing bank windows. It's vandalism. Certainly isn't domestic fucking terrorism.
Yeah, that one, I go back and forth there. It feels like a stretch. It feels like a stretch.
From a free speech absolutist, it feels like absolute fucking hypocrisy.
That's not to justify damaging property, but to label it domestic terrorism does feel a little like an overreach.
I generally for methods of after more peaceful methods have been ignored and discounted, the next step of escalation is damage, right? Economic damage, like economic action, boycotts, etc., strikes, out and out vandalism and property damage, right? Graffiti. I like it when it's creative, but same thing, painting a mural of Che Guevara on the corporate wall. It's all in that same pot. And so, like, it's the Boston Tea Party.
I've heard that argument thrown around a lot. Yeah.
Like, it's pretty deeply ingrained in the American way, right? If redress of grievances from the government has not been met, then and the Boston Tea Party is a great example, because that wasn't Britain's tea. That was the East India Tea Company's tea. That was the private company that was siphoning and having governmental control outside of the monarchy or the parliament. It was an unelected, unappointed, private corporate body making government level decisions, especially on the colonies. That's why we dumped their tea. Right? So that's a pretty parallel comparison, right?
It is interesting that there weren't, or at least it didn't seem like there were any measures prior to the vandalism. It didn't seem like there were any mass boycotts of just people saying, don't buy Teslas. It seems like they escalated pretty quickly, though, no?
No more quickly than, I would say, Musk's actions. Move fast.
Specifically.
Move fast, break things, man. I mean, if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander, right? I mean, the damage done just within 60 days, court stays and holds and injunctions and reversals, what have you, that interruption of continuity of governance already is having impact, and it's not over. So that escalated fast too. And there were targeted boycotts, like Tesla stock has been dropping before the cars started burning.
Yeah, but the stock market in general is kind of, I think a lot of that is fear about the tariffs.
How did that happen? Tariffs was a part of it. The project, is it Star Speed? I don't know. The big AI government project, actually.
Oh, where they were going to invest billions.
Also tanked the market, and then coincided with the release of a revolutionary AI in the market. We can talk all about that if you want.
Yeah, I'm not familiar.
AI stuff. Sure. So.
Well, wait, stay on Tesla for a sec, because I'm interested.
Yes. Okay. Where were we on Tesla? Because part of the market crash, but
yeah. XAI bought out X.
That was just today, and that was a shady move.
Which
right?
I don't fully understand, because he owns both companies on paper, correct?
But his
Obviously,
value is determined by the stock trading price of those companies. So Tesla is crashing. Twitter was always overvalued. He paid way too much for it.
Tried to back out.
And so that has never had the value that he said it has, which is why another company buying it for $44 billion is just to float the value of his assets up so he can cover his losses on a different end. Right? It's a big shell game that the rich get to play. It's, and I mean, if only there was a functional SEC to investigate such things.
Yeah, you haven't heard a peep out of the SEC
well,
in a minute.
Have you seen anybody who's working there?
I don't know anybody that's working there anymore.
That's because they all got fucking fired.
But some of those...
Yeah, the first thing that happens was the investigators went. The investigators general, the SEC, all of the organizations, at first, the ones that were investigating Musk, of which there were 18, 19 different organizations checking out different things he'd fucked up. The FAA was all over his ass, for scattering rocket debris across the United States, punching holes in the atmosphere. Can
you do me a favor? Pull that mic just a tad bit closer.
Whoop. Indeed. I project, so sometimes I worry I'm going to blow out, and get all peaky. But
no, you're good.
All right,
I got
great.
you covered.
Right. Your mic setup is better than mine. That's what it comes down to. By the way, let's do an intro. My name's Thomas Edrington. I'm the director of the Transparent Humboldt Coalition. We are having a fundraiser we're going to talk about before too long. I'm also a boy activist, autism advocate. God, dude, I mean,
Man of many hats.
You can't wear a joker in your hat and only do one thing. That's really, like, people ask what the joker means. It means I'm aware. Well, there's a lot of things I say it means, because if I only had one answer, I also wouldn't be worthy of a joker card. But one of the big things it means is I wear a lot of hats and I don't have enough money to wear to, like, actually switch the hat, right? You know, a good hat's a solid $15, $20 investment. Well, no, a good hat costs money. I don't buy good hats. I buy Target shit. This was a gift. But I do several things. I work with lots of people for whom I do not speak, especially when I give controversial takes. I back them all up. You know who you are. And that's the intro. There you go. Now you put on your theme music, and we've done the cold open.
And we're back. It's been fascinating. You know, one of the things that I always fall back to with the investigations is the DOJ investigation, where he wasn't hiring illegal immigrants for SpaceX. But the argument is that you can't because it's a national security issue. I think that's where people get stuck, is you hear, oh, well, some of these investigations might have been a little wonky under the previous administration, but what about the others? That's the only one I know off the top of my head. I don't know about the other 17 that were in progress. But you hear that and you think, that can't be real.
Financial hujum, like being late on government contract, like not actually fulfilling government contracts, fraud, waste, and abuse much.
For SpaceX?
Yeah, SpaceX, Starlink. SpaceX is basically, or Starlink basically exists so that SpaceX could exist. SpaceX, there's no
income
workable. Well, there's no workable, reasonable satellite need that is going to make the launch schedule that is going to create a profitable business model for SpaceX.
Currently.
Ever.
Well, what if we go interplanetary? Then you would need a system like SpaceX.
Maybe. I mean,
how do you get to Mars?
The government got us there in the first place.
I know, but NASA has, you want to talk about a company that is a serious fall off. It's NASA, to build out all of this amazing technology, get us to the moon, and then not take us back for decades.
Well, remember, getting us to the moon was a part of the Cold War. Like we
had a strong incentive.
Yeah. Yeah. And once the wall fell, well, we don't need to show off our rockets anymore, right? We don't need to show how far and how accurately we can launch a payload, and so we didn't. We pulled the money from it, and that's why you got a lot more like privatized or coalition research with like international agencies, because
which falls apart when you're in a war with Russia.
Doesn't it though?
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll touch on that one too. But Musk, I mean, if you wanted to take a case study of someone who was favored by one side and then completely lost favor and went to the other side, it's fascinating seeing all that play out. Just as a head of a major company, multiple major companies.
Textbook case of red pilling. Although I will point out that, like, he was a corporatist darling, but it was never really like he put a lot more money into Dems at a certain point, and so had more Democratic Party friends.
Yeah, but even people just average lefties love Teslas. Back in the day, loved Teslas.
And it's because legitimately he pushed, like, for his own personal enrichment, he did push forward a green product, right? Like,
and it was a great product.
Yeah, sometimes people do good things for selfish reasons. Like, that happens. But mistaking that, and also, he didn't invent Teslas. He didn't invent anything at that company. He bought into it after being kicked off the board in other companies that he bought into and didn't make, and tried to take more credit for than he wanted to, or than he should have, which pissed off other billionaires, right? Peter Thiel, right? The Peter Thiel, Elon Musk tiff at breakup, their tiff at PayPal, right? For much the same reasons. He bought in, had no real ideas or push or even meaningful input into the corporate culture, at least according to Thiel, who, got to consider the source, but right, that was the push there. He's never actually produced anything.
I thought when he came in at Tesla, they didn't even have a working prototype, that they had to rebuild the car from the ground up, and that was primarily pushed by him. Because I've heard the argument that he didn't really design anything at Tesla, but I think that's pretty false.
He put a lot of money into it. They weren't at market yet, right? It was,
but they didn't even have a chassis that they could use. They had to redesign everything from the ground up.
I'd have to look more into the history to be able to parse out how and what went on there.
Regardless of how you feel about the guy, he's not an idiot. Debatable?
Debatable. Thoroughly debatable, right? Dude says stupid shit all the time. All the time. Publicly. And when he's called out on it, he throws tantrums, right? This is not mature, intelligent behavior, right? He was born with a silver spoon from apartheid gem mines and got to America, dropped out of college, illegally overstayed his visa, threw his money around, made more money, threw his money around, made more money, continued to fail upward. Picking some winners isn't genius, right? That's not, and having the ability to fail and not be done, that's privilege, not genius.
Well, I don't think, there was no guarantee of Tesla or even SpaceX succeeding, especially at the beginning. He came pretty close to bankruptcy a number of different times.
Company bankruptcy, not personal bankruptcy. I
think he put the last of all of the money he got from the PayPal buyout into those companies. I don't think he had any money in the beginning of those days with starting, especially with Tesla. There's a story that's pretty famous of him. Maybe it was his last 50, which sounds pretty crazy, last 50 or 100 million, and he split it between those two companies and was couch surfing with friends because he literally had no money. All of his money was tied up in those companies. And SpaceX, those rockets were blowing up. People see the crashes now and think, oh, this is the end of the world. But in the beginning, they couldn't even get a rocket anywhere near the capability that they have now.
Okay, first, the couch surfing stuff, that's a lifestyle choice that he makes no matter how much resources he has. That is arrested development because his college days were his best days.
Some people just I wonder if some of that is just public perception too, that he doesn't want to own a house. He calls them attack vectors. If he accumulated all of this stuff, more people would have ammunition to go after him. If he was driving around in a Bugatti, that might rub people even more the wrong way.
So, that, again, is not genius level thinking. There's plenty of ways to do that and not, first, not put yourself in a position to be under attack, and second, not think that you're always going to be under attack. There's a lot of billionaires who don't live that way.
No, you don't really hear anything about Jeff Bezos. At least not to the extent he's gotten a little more.
You got to dig harder, right? That's the other thing is
benefit of owning
an attention whore.
A newspaper.
Yeah, right. You hear from Jeff Bezos in the same way you heard from Rupert Murdoch, through mouthpieces. Yeah.
It's interesting that was kind of the status quo, and now Musk has broken that veil in some ways. He's way more vocal than any of the other billionaires, by far.
Again, he just needs it to be personal. He needs it to be about him, right? because and which is why he bought Twitter and not the New York Times, right? It's because that way he can see exactly how much attention he is getting and manipulate the system to give himself more attention. Not genius behavior, not mature behavior, right? So utterly, thoroughly debatable about whether he's a genius. Right? If you've heard him speak, he's not. If you've watched him nod out on ketamine at public fucking events, he's not. Right? His they call it the Calvin Klein. Okay, so
I haven't heard of this.
So watch for him at public events doing this. Happens all the time. That is what happens when you mix cocaine or another powerful stimulant with ketamine.
How does that work?
They call it a Calvin Klein, CK.
Because you're kind of just
cocaine,
spacey.
ketamine. Yeah, it's to keep you like somewhat alert during a K-hole, but it ends up you're standing on stage behind the president going, yeah, that's not autism.
How does that work with drug testing when you have a security clearance like he does? Because when he smoked weed famously on Joe Rogan's podcast, he was in a world of shit and they were drug testing him repeatedly for, I believe, a few years after that. I don't know.
What is the system for holding rich and powerful people accountable for fucking anything? Doesn't exist as far as I can tell.
Do you think the weed issue was just because it was on camera?
Yeah, and then it went away. Clearly, he still has security clearance.
Yeah, but I think he got into a world of trouble with that.
With his shareholders.
World of trouble,
with his
quote
board.
unquote.
With his board, not because they were worried about it. Were there any consequences? No.
What do you think the odds are that his board for Tesla ousts him? You have some public people coming forward and saying that they need a new CEO because he's not focusing enough attention on the company. Do you think there is a Tesla without him? Do you think that all of the protests and everything would stop if he weren't connected to the company anymore?
I do, right? Because specifically it's his actions that are being protested. So if he divested completely from the company, I would not be surprised to see no more burning Teslas, no more swastikas on Teslas, right? Because the Cybertruck didn't go on stage at the inauguration and perform a Nazi salute. That was Elon Musk. So, right, Volkswagen's still around without Hitler. Right? He started, that's why Volkswagen exists. Well, it outlived him. Right? And why? Because they make a solid product and they no longer have to use the methods they used. Same with Teslas. I mean, right now, literally most of the problems with Teslas have to do with Musk's policy specifically.
His personal persona.
And his ideas on how workers should behave or how he should be able to treat workers. Like that's the problem in Europe that he has is they have some very I would say good laws. Others that have different ideas about the value of labor might suggest otherwise, but they have some very strong laws about like workers' rights, how much they work, when you can tell them to work more. Like there are large built-in vacation windows, all sorts of like worker protections, especially in Germany where he's having the biggest problems, but also I think in some Nordic countries. And he wants to be able to say, justify your job or I fire you right now. And he tried that shit when he bought Twitter and did not go down in the European division. Same thing when he's got Tesla factories over there. Does not go down. And that shit doesn't pass their safety. Like I don't think you can drive a Cybertruck anywhere in Europe. Right? It doesn't pass any of their
Yeah, but they have weird safety laws about edges that you can't have sharp edges on a vehicle. I think that's the big one with the Cybertruck.
It's because they have much narrower roads in general, and so that legitimately you will kill a pedestrian. Like if you have a sharp mirror, you're gonna like take an arm off, right? Because they were built in a different age, like before vehicles. That's why most of their vehicles are much more compact, is because so are their roads. Yeah, the Cybertruck is a uniquely American creation that could only exist here and made like China and Dubai. So we've got a fundraiser coming up.
Tell me about it. Well, prelude that a little bit.
Segue.
How did it go with the previous play? So tell people what you did.
On February 2nd, we got a whole bunch of elected officials from across the county and a whole bunch of stage performers from across the county. Savage Henry showed up big. Shout out to Savage Henry. I love those folks. Hit them up. They have a comedy thing going every night. Go support local comedy. But and we played Blood on the Clock Tower, which is a murder mystery game. You assign a informed minority, the bad guys, the demon and their minions, to and pit them against the uninformed majority, a group who has a group goal that the other team is attempting to foil in some way. That's the basis of the genre of games. So in Blood on the Clock Tower, every player has like, if they're evil, the demon, kills things and has some other ability to foul information. If they're a minion, they also will like mess with the flow of information in the game, or be able to like, on the February game, the minion was able to, if the demon died, become the demon. And that's what happened for Evil won the game, by the way. Well, what do you know? An informed majority overpowered an uninformed majority. Art imitates life. But it was a lot of fun. The audience pitched in like, we secretly are giving out information to players and characters, and like, that's the other thing. Like, if you're on the good team, you get some information. Like there's an undertaker that if someone is executed, they vote somebody out during the day. The undertaker learns their role or something like that. But they can be poisoned by various things or given false information for other reasons. And so the trick is then to like confer with all your people, which we had take place near, where the audience could overhear their private conversations and who was saying what and what information matched up. But the audience is assigned good and evil teams in their programs on the way in. There's a secret mark somewhere in the program that will tell you what team you're on. And so in the middle of rounds, when we're delivering information secretly, the audience can have gone back to the concession stand and whispered some gossip to the bartender about a thing they know and given a little donation to the cause, fundraiser for nonprofits. And then we read out these rumors on stage, other bits of information that might be true, they might be false, they might be repeating false information. Again, all art imitates life. Misinformation, disinformation, all over the place. And somewhere in there is the truth. The good team didn't quite find it, but they'll try again on April 12th.
Did that surprise you?
No, not really. I mean, the way the game is set up is it's tricky for the good team to really zero in. Right. It takes some work and some strategy. Like it's not easy for either team, but I'm never really surprised to see evil team
prevail,
get to it. And it was down to the wire. Like the demon, Sam Greenspan, the final demon who became the demon at the end of the game, was up on the block. Like they had him ready to execute, and then decided to execute someone else, I think, if I remember correctly. Like, but he was in the like final two, debating like heavily on which way to go. So it was a 50-50 call. It was down to the wire, which is kind of as so there's like a person, Dave Hamilton in this case, Dax Allen for the 12th, plays the storyteller whose role is to dole out the information in such a way that there's always a little doubt as to where everything falls, right? Anything might be false, right? Because there's also poisoning and drunkenness and different things that foul up your information. You want it, as a storyteller, you want it to get down to like the final 3 players, the final vote. Like you have to get it right on this one or else all is lost. And that's where they got. It was a really entertaining game. And in this case, they happened to go with voting out the good guy. We'll see how they do on the 12th. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. We've got a different set of elected officials and performers for this round. We've got including the registrar and elections clerk, Juan Pablo Cervantes. Loves board games, turns out.
He's been on the show before.
He's a great guy. Really, maybe the most positive-minded elected official ever, just as a general person, seems pretty chipper for somebody who engages in politics.
Could be the fact that he was a philosophy major. He's just got that aura about him.
What about philosophy makes you think it makes you happy?
Well, he was big. We talked a lot about stoicism, which I would attribute to that. Just maintaining a positive attitude. Yeah, or at least not dwelling on negativity and helplessness. Things you can't control.
Right, yeah, focusing on action and next steps. Right, not letting it get to you. Stoicism.
Which is a challenge in today's world.
Yeah, I suppose. Letting it's okay to let something get to you, but not let it keep at you. Right? There's right, if you have an empathetic response to suffering, that's okay that it got to you. Right?
But empathy it's challenging in a world where there's not enough empathy in a sense to go around, because you could fall into a wormhole where all you're seeing is the worst of humanity.
You can teach your algorithm to feed you exclusively that. If you have done so, may I recommend #HopeCore. Because there is enough empathy to go around. Around all those, everywhere there is suffering, Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. There are always people that are responding in a way that I would consider appropriately, right? They are attempting to help. They are attempting to ease suffering, right? Trying to put resources where they can best be used and get people out of harm's way. That's that exists around every point of suffering that you see. And sometimes the amount of access that a suffering person has to resources and things, they're, up and down, and I shouldn't say every point. Some people are truly isolated, but in the world of the internet, you can connect with someone, right? So we have much more access to witnessing suffering, right? And we don't have enough personal empathy to pour into every piece of cruelty that we see. Excuse me. That's impossible. We have a global access to information. Boy. We have access to global information. We have access to, moment by moment, 24-hour news, and it's done in flashes. It's not done in long, thoughtful 2-hour Netflix documentaries, right? And even that is really just a snapshot, right? It's just what they can dump into your head in an entertaining narrative format in 2 hours, right? And because if it bleeds, it leads, all of these cameras focus on the suffering, right? On the pain, because that gets a gut-wrenching response, because it hits you with a dopamine hit, right? Because it's a quick emotional gut punch. It's pure pathos. And so that is what our infosphere has become, right? Over 30, 40 years of deregulation and move fast and break things, right? Are the promise of the internet was a pure decentralization of information sharing. And what it became was a few large entities with powerful algorithms feeding us information to hook us into giving it attention, right? That was the promise that fulfilled. Yay, dystopia. We win. But there is enough empathy out there. There really is. Like scratch below the surface just a little bit. And if you're not feeling it, I'm really sorry. Like there's some helplines. I don't have any off the top of my head. I guarantee you. Look up howdoihelpmyproblem.com. It'll be there. Like somebody is there to help you. Right. And there always is. There always is somebody there. There are people volunteering at helplines. There are people trained at mental health centers. There are government resources. There are church resources if you are of faith, right? There's somebody out there that will help you, right? Our ability to access those people, right? We should have more of it, right? Those pathways should be easier to travel rather than more difficult, right? The system intentionally puts up roadblocks to weed out fraud. Right? Security and usability are mutually antagonistic, right? That is making a system secure makes it less usable. That is what security is, right? Having a lock means you have to take an extra step to open the door. You can't just breeze on through with 2 arms of groceries. No, it's less usable. You got to set it down. You got to pull the key. You got to do the thing. And if your key breaks in it, well, now you have to call the locksmith. You have a whole of right. And every level of security is a level of sacrificed usability. And so if we're putting up, for instance, means testing as a measure of fraud security, well, what that means is it's less usable, but it's not less usable for people with means who are defrauding the system. They have the means to get around that. It's less usable for the people who have a low threshold of use anyway. People who are vulnerable, who have disability, who are in a bad situation, who need to get out of their home, who have just had a medical debt that have bankrupted them, who have some vulnerability that is what the social safety net is for instance. And any level of barrier to that disproportionately affects vulnerable people and is just a roadblock to the wealthy folks who are actually taking advantage of the system. A Medicare scammer is not poor. To get the resources to pull off a Medicare scam are not available to the working poor. It's not a thing.
Yeah, if you have access to the resources, you can get around a lot of the gates.
Yeah.
And that's just a reality of the situation.
Yeah, and most of the points of infiltration really just come from relationships, and college buddy is the killer. That is the one every time. Like having done some like corporate security tracing stuff, that is the one every time. Like
or you just happen to have a journalist's phone number that you've been leaking information to and accidentally add him to a Signal group chat. Happens to all of us.
It doesn't. Pete, was it Pete Hegseth or
it was Walt?
Well, no, but the one who typed in OPSEC is clean.
Oh yeah, that was
Just
Hegseth.
Like, what the?
Yeah, that doesn't go over well.
The fact that I got to read it means it wasn't.
To say that and then have the journalist in the chat reading that.
And I will say, like, I don't generally have a whole lot of respect for Goldberg. He's he's more a stenographer for state media than he is any sort of investigative journalist, as witnessed by the fact that when he realized it was real, he logged off. Coward.
Yeah, that was interesting. Why would you leave the chat?
Cowardice. Because he doesn't want to piss those people off and lose access to them, because he's an access journalist, not an investigative journalist. An investigative journalist would have stayed on and waited and looked to see when it closed and then got deleted. Because if it got deleted, it's a federal fucking crime. That's what an investigative journalist would have done.
Aren't you burning access either way, though? Well, I mean, I guess
he tried real hard not to, and then when he realized he was burnt, he's like, "All right, here. If it's not classified, here it is. You've said publicly it's not classified. We sent our legal team a thing, and they said, well, we'd really rather you didn't." Just the milquetoastiest, weakest email back from the White House. Well, we'd really appreciate it if you did it. And so now we have all read them.
And nothing's happened.
There's been a lot of stern talking tos, and there is talk of something happening. I don't think there will be any accountability. Trump's certainly not going to hold any of them fucking accountable. If anything, Waltz is going to get a cushy send off to a corporate gig. That's it.
Do you think he's actually going to be removed?
No, I honestly, like, if anything, he is going to gracefully resign and then get installed immediately into one of those political industrial organizations in that orbit. That's it. That's the closest thing to accountability that I expect to see to anybody in this administration.
Which is interesting. You think you find the guy that's been leaking information, you would want to hold him accountable, especially when it culminates in an act like this, where you're leaking a signal chat.
Oh, I don't think Waltz leaks anything. I legit think he doesn't know. Right?
Really?
I really do. Waltz is not a cagey man.
Yeah, but I think, what's his name? Goldberg?
Yeah.
I think he said that they've had prior correspondence, and that's why his name was in his phone. You don't think he was, because they've had previous leaks.
Goldberg's not an investigative journalist. He doesn't go after that sort of information. The reason they've had correspondence is because he is a stenographer for state media. He's happy to reprint what they say. And that's why his number gets passed around. That's why he has made those phone calls. That's why that's why he's in those phones. That's the least surprising thing of any of this, was that Waltz had Goldberg's number, right? One of the preeminent political reporters that is not going to question your message ever. Even in the first round of this, he's like, well, I was on this thing and it was very strange. I don't know what's going on in the state. Just the softest, quietest, please don't be mad at me version of the story, until the inevitable name calling and bullshit cover up and, well, this wasn't classified. Clearly fucking classified information. I shouldn't know how long it takes an F-18 to get from takeoff to strike zone. I should not have that information, because if I have that information, it means fucking everybody has it. I don't have special access to anything, not at that level. So that means, like, I mean, from there, just metadata, you triangulate, where American resources are, strike groups, all of that. Like, I think it might have been a surprise to learn how quickly or exactly how much time it takes that specific model of drone to get into attack position. That is now intelligence that everyone in the world has, but not classified.
I don't know. Why not just come out? Maybe it's just an accountability thing for me. Why not just come out and say, if you're Waltz, say, yeah, he was in my phone, obviously because he's a journalist and maybe we've had prior contact. Why try to lie and say, oh, maybe my phone just somehow sucked up his number from the ether.
I think he thinks that's again, like that part legitimately, I think he thinks that's how it happened. Like he was on like State Department communications, that went out to journalists and then, just saved it in his phone. Like, again, that's the least surprising part of that to me, right? How he then punched the button to put somebody on that chat. First of all, that chat that shouldn't fucking exist. Let's not skip right over that part. That is not how government business gets done. Over a corporate app, over a third party, non-secure app.
And one of the members was in Russia at the time.
Everything you type through a third party is owned by that third party and is probably going to get sold for AI analysis. That is where training data comes from. Yeah, you can't.
And isn't the guy Russian, the creator of Signal? Wasn't there a case few months ago where Russia was trying to put pressure on him to hand over some data attached to Signal?
I don't know. I mean, they don't have to put that much pressure. The government just buys it. That's.
I've never used Signal, so I'm not familiar with their encryption.
No, that's just like that is how the government gets data. Like the companies hold data. I mean, Signal does less of it because it's a nonprofit, like because it has like specific controls over what it can do because of its nonprofit status. It's less likely to do that thing, but WhatsApp doesn't. And I'm sure, like if they're using Signal, they're using WhatsApp. Why not? Whoever starts the thing has whichever. But either way, it's not a SCIF. It's not a classified secure line.
And it's not subject to FOIA.
Yeah.
That's the big one.
Yeah. It is. Well, I mean, no. Especially if it's done on a government device, it is subject to FOIA.
If people know it exists.
Exactly. And the problem is Signal self-deletes. That's a feature on Signal. It's a basic thing. It self-deletes. So you can't get it. It's not there. There's nothing to FOIA. That's definitely not the only time this has happened.
Oh, no. It's just the one time they got caught.
Because not a single one of them said, what the fuck? Why are we doing this on Signal? This was expected, right? No, nobody's like, oh, hey, didn't realize we were doing this. Like nobody was surprised by this. This is the way it has been done, which is a problem for a lot of reasons, including transparency, right? Like, yeah, like there's a reason that archives are kept in a very specific way, especially classified archives, right? It's necessary, especially like if there's a legal challenge to something, right?
Do you think that's why the White House is trying to just move on from this? Is because they don't want the means of communication coming into question?
The White House, Trump operates in the manner of someone who's never been held accountable for anything. And so just moves through it because he knows that he will not be held accountable for anything. He's essentially extended that umbrella across all of his sycophancy, all of his bootlickers, all of his cult, all of his now pardoned violent supporters, all now enjoy that complete lack of accountability. It's not a strategic move. Oh, we've got to move past it. Maybe they'll forget. No, he forgot. He doesn't care. Nobody there gives a fuck.
Teflon Don.
They're moving past it because they can't imagine a world where they'll be held accountable for a choice. And to be fair, so far nobody's proved them wrong.
It's worked.
Yeah. Right. I mean, this is a disease of the rich. Like I say this administration because it is central to it, but it's not unique to affluent people, right? That it is part of affluenza. It is part of the mental damage that happens to someone from never being held accountable and always having too much and then being told they deserve it.
Have you heard him saying he's going to run for a third term?
He just said he wasn't kidding.
I think he also said technically it'd be his fourth term because they stole the 2020 election.
Very stable genius.
Part of me just chalks that up to trolling. But man, it's deep level trolling.
When a narcissist trolls, what they're doing is saying an offensive true thing to test your resilience to it. And then if you push back, it's, it was a joke. It's not a joke. It is a serious statement that they will try and play down if someone calls them out on it. This is textbook narcissist behavior. That is what is happening.
Is there any pathway for him to actually do that? Like a legal precedent? Obviously, we have had presidents that have done a third term.
The pathway is to completely ignore the law and not be held accountable by any means. And again, if the last 60 days have shown us anything, it is that is a pathway.
That'd be pretty crazy to watch play out. If he just says, yeah, I'm not going. I mean, just as a hypothetical, if we hold an election, he's like, yeah.
If he wasn't a Russian agent, he could not have performed the role better.
Do you think he's a Russian agent?
I know for certain he's been compromised by Russia since the 2010s. Like, the bankruptcy of his casino was refloated by Russian mob money to the point that Atlantic City would not issue him a casino license. That is on the books. That was before the presidency, before he got cushy with Putin, before he rolled over on America's complete foreign policy when it comes to maintaining allies that are combative with Russia. It's before he shut down the cybersecurity division that deals with Russian cyber attacks. Before any of that happened, he got saved by Russian mob money.
And this is all separate from the Steele dossier. Not taking that into account.
Yeah, even if nothing in that dossier is true, which I know that parts have been cast shade on, but
I think the whole thing has been cast shade on, hasn't it? Hasn't been pretty fundamentally disproven?
No. Certainly people have said that it was. But nobody without an agenda. There are parts that are definitely disinformation, right? That were probably leaked by Russia specifically to cast doubt on anything else that was said, right? That is what you do when you know you're compromised, is you put out disinformation to make the rest of the information suspect. I just ran a whole game about it.
And you saw how that played out.
Yep.
I think it's far more likely that he's an asset of Israel than of Russia.
Oh, his relationship with Israel has been recent, right? That only really happened kind of in his first term. And then the extension of that was Kushner going and doing all of the things he has done in the West Bank while there's a genocide going on. So I don't think that goes as far back And I also don't think that Israel and Russia are mutually exclusive when it like
You could have dual loyalty.
Yeah, and I don't think the two are. I don't think it would bother either one if the other one was friendly. Right?
Are Russia and Israel friendly? You don't really have any conflict between the two.
But Russia has no like combative position towards them. Right? It doesn't support any of the like Middle Eastern countries, although it's got more ties to Iran than anyone else, but that's basically because they were the only ones that didn't sanction them, right? That was a business move, not an ideological one. So, right, and there's any any involvement by an imperial power in the Middle East is always going to be complicated by 1,000 different things because there's a lot going on. But to my knowledge, no, there's not been any like actively hostile moves from Russia towards Israel. Keeping in mind that the men at the top of it are very similar, right? Bibi is a right-wing dictator. Putin is a right-wing dictator. Like they're not a whole lot of sunlight between their ideological positions. So, right, I'm sure, and at no point has Russia spoken up about this whole genocide thing.
I was just thinking that.
Putin's like, oh, well, whatever, that's fine, right?
He's probably taking some notes.
Yeah, what does Russia care, right? He's busy trying the same thing over in Ukraine.
The deportation of students over protesting what's happening over there is scary to watch.
You mean the kidnapping of children? Oh, you meant Russian students.
No, I mean just foreign students that are having their visas revoked. You haven't been following
Oh,
this?
you mean here?
Yeah, students in the U.S.
Yes,
from abroad.
Mahmoud Khalil,
famous one.
Rums. I forget her family name. But yeah, like for
Protesting.
speech,
Yeah.
For writing an article, for helping organize a peaceful protest, for a host of other things. We have now had an American citizen kidnapped off the streets for a tattoo.
I haven't heard about that.
For looking Hispanic. Yeah, that was that broke within the last 24 hours, but it was inevitable.
What happened in this case? He had a tattoo and looked Hispanic.
Targeted because of the profile, right?
Was this an ICE detainee?
Yeah, the same story. Ripped off the street.
What was the tattoo?
I don't have the detail there, but it was like resembled a gang tattoo, which I will remind you, like a rainbow autism ribbon got pulled into that description. So calling bullshit on the concept of that first. So like they clearly don't know what those gang tattoos look like, and are going for fucking anything. So. Yeah, that was the information that again broke not too long ago. So I don't have as in-depth a story on that, but an American citizen, that was always going to happen, right? That was never not going to get caught up in that. We've already pulled Canadian citizens into this, like other country citizens, Venezuelans that are here legally. Right, that whole problem, and we're sending them to what is essentially a concentration camp,
the prison in El Salvador.
Yeah, like just a well-ordered human rights violation, overseen by, as he describes himself, the world's friendliest dictator. All in the name of the American people, of whom I am one.
I could understand the argument if you say we were in a war and we had people from abroad in this country, say studying at universities, and they were protesting our actions. And maybe you were trying to make the claim that this is undermining our unification, our stance abroad, maybe. But to do this for a war that it shouldn't involve us, first off, that we are funding significantly, and it's not even a criticism of our interaction in this necessarily, but what the foreign government's doing, that feels pretty dicey.
At Columbia, they weren't calling for the government to do a damn thing. They were calling for the university to divest from its Israeli investments. It's not a government action. It's a state-run university, but all those investments are private. Actually, I'm not even sure Columbia is state-run now that I think about it. But that was part of... We'll use Humboldt as a better example. I know that was part of their demands. The demands here, and that is a state-run school. So that one I know more certainly. But Columbia, I believe, is private. And further, Columbia. I mean, you're familiar with what the government is further doing with Columbia?
No.
Oh no, it's pulled its funding because of its curriculum.
Oh, I had heard something about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's same thing that the Smithsonian Museum is losing funding because of its inappropriate educational something, like just the dumbest language to say, take all the black people out of history.
Oh, this was around DEI stuff.
Yeah. There's no Spanish on the White House website anymore.
No Spanish.
Yeah.
It's all in English.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know there was Spanish before.
You didn't need to. It wasn't for you. But now it's not for anybody. Write it in Navajo, you cowards.
Is El Salvador, are they just trying to pivot to a prison country? That's because we're paying them, right? As we're transporting these people over there and we're paying them to be housed. Yeah.
And hey, weird how much of that went right into Trump's pocket as well. Like there's an emoluments violation in that deal.
He's getting money in return.
Mm-hmm.
How much is he getting per? Do you know how much we're paying per prisoner?
It'd
be kind of crazy if it was more expensive than to just house them here.
It absolutely is. I'd have to look closer and do the math, like per prisoner. But El Salvador paid us like $6 million for the contract, basically, and I don't know how much we're giving them. I'm not even sure that's been disclosed. I'm not even positive anybody's run the numbers in this government. I don't know if anybody fucking knows. There's a real chance nobody's checked.
And is anybody tracking who's actually being sent over? Are we keeping records on those people?
Barely. Only just barely. We're actively getting rid of ones that we've had. We've been back to Ukraine. We've been holding the records of children that have been kidnapped out of the Ukraine and are now missing in Russia.
I didn't know that was. I had just heard that the other day listening to a podcast. I didn't know that was going on.
Mm-hmm. And we've been holding keeping track of the records for them until about last week.
Keeping records of the missing children.
Yeah.
Why is Ukraine not doing that?
They probably kind of are, but their infrastructure is fucked, man. Right? I mean, they can only do so much, and it was one of the things that we had offered to do. Right? That's part of why they haven't been doing it, because we did it, and then we just stopped, and we didn't hey, we're done keeping track of it. Here's what we have. We just delete, and that's all gone now.
The argument that I had heard in this podcast as to why that's not more well known is that it would diminish Ukraine's stance in the war, that people would be calling more for peace because of all these children that are going missing, that they need to stop this and try to find those kids. Because that seems like that would be a big selling point for Ukraine to say, hey, they're taking children off the streets of our country.
I don't think that's been hidden.
It's definitely not in mainstream news, though. You don't see a 60 Minutes expose or a NBC Nightly News.
Well, yeah, I mean on American news for sure, but also which stream? Like again, like my news consumption is breadth and depth.
Okay,
right?
hone in on just American news.
Right, but especially from the right, of course they don't want anything sympathetic on the Ukraine, right? They don't want any reason for Americans to feel like our Ukrainian people are humans.
But I can't imagine this has just been happening since Trump took office. I would imagine this has been happening throughout the war. Which then why would the Biden administration not focus on this as a rallying point around Ukraine?
I don't know. Why did the Biden administration do any of the things it did? Like that's
a good point too.
Yeah. Oh, look, Biden lost a strategic opportunity. He didn't make an optimal strategic move.
That's not a big stretch.
To drive a message home to the American people. Wow.
Where are you hearing this talked about? Is this like a Ukrainian news source?
No, this is on American news sources. I mean, at some points, even like you'll see it covered, especially on the left. Like NBC has or MSNBC has covered it, CNBC has covered it. You see it like I have seen it touched on in print, but not broadcast.
You still get newspapers?
No, but I read them.
Okay.
Like there's an internet, man.
Yeah, good point. I was thinking you had a subscription to the Times Standard or something.
I do, but it's the online subscription. Like I don't
checks out.
Right, save a forest, man. I don't have a wood stove. I don't need that much kindling. Like that's the only reason I would want a newspaper.
That seems like that would be a big. I mean, I don't want to frame it like this, but a big selling point for people that are empathetic to Ukraine's current position.
Yeah.
Especially as we're trying to push for peace talks. You would think that people would be yelling that from the rooftops.
But only one side of that war has spent decades infiltrating American media. So, and it's not the one that wants you to feel about the Ukrainian people. Right? They just don't, but the message doesn't get through as deeply because there's just not as deep a push. And partly because like the fractured media sphere of factual media. So the fractured media sphere exists except within propaganda. Whenever you find a unified message, it is almost certainly paid for. Right. And you find that very clearly in the misinformation and disinformation, the most common misinformation and disinformation sources are pro-Russia. And they are coordinated, have specifically word for word messages that are sent around broadly, like across radio, across broadcast, across the internet. Word for word memetics. This is cognitive warfare, by the way. This is like that is the realm of communication that we're talking about. This is cognitive warfare, like using language communication to insert the idea you want, whether it's true or not, and whether the person knows that they're being programmed or not. Right? Cognitive warfare. That is why these messages don't get through. Right? That is why, like, you find the like, well, I mean, did Russia really invade Ukraine? Yes, they fucking did. We were all alive for it. God damn it. Like, I know it was before the pandemic, but try to remember just a couple of years back. Like, we were there. Paul Manafort rigged an election in Crimea before he worked for Trump. For Putin, we all saw it happen in real time. That's how, like, that was the beginning of all this. And then Russian troops invaded the area at the behest of the puppet government. That's like, it started with an illegal annexation, an invasion. That's what an invasion is. America saying, you're our 51st state now, and then sending troops to Canada would be an invasion. That's what happened. The fact that whole chunks of right-wing media narrative are trying to pretend that's not what happened is such perfect snapshot of the problem.
Has Russia said anything about the kids issue? They're just ignoring that. Yeah.
Why would? Oh no, they've rescued them. I'm sure. Okay, I haven't seen it, but here's my prediction. If I hunt it down, we've rescued these poor Ukrainian orphans to glorious Mother Russia. They are cared for. So and they'll show a picture of some other child with two people who are definitely not his parents, smiling like there's guns just off camera, because there fucking are. And that will be the response. If there has been a response, I guarantee you that is the one.
Yeah, they're definitely not going to come out and say we're stealing these kids from homes and
raising them to be our fourth wave of soldiers, which I think is more likely.
Man, that would be tragic, because that means the war is extended for another decade.
Decade?
Well, I'm envisioning them taking, I guess if you're taking 13-year-old kids, 5 years, you could wait them out.
Yeah, if you have morals.
Are you thinking they're using
child soldiers? Would you put that beneath Putin? Would you be shocked to learn in 3 years that they're fielding 13-year-old Ukrainian kidnapped children onto the battlefield against Ukraine? Would that shock you? And these are the people the president wants to be friends with.
I don't know how reliable kids would be on a battlefield, though. They might be more of a nuisance.
Child soldiers have been an effective tool of war for centuries. The Child's Crusade was one of the crusades.
Where they just sent children out? And this was pushed by the church as a crusade? I've never heard about that.
Yeah, the Children's
We'll
Crusade.
have to do some digging on that.
The orphan problem. All over Africa as warlords come and go.
Oh, I know about the African situation.
Child soldiers.
But in Africa, those are children going
Vietnam,
up against
child soldiers.
Tribes.
Reportedly, insurgents in Afghanistan have fielded underage troops, underage troops against us. It's
definitely not unheard of.
No.
I would imagine they would empty out their prisons first. And then if push came to shove, maybe they
did that already.
Throw a couple. You don't think they still have some people in reserve?
That was Wagner. Remember the guy who died in the plane?
That was a private military group, though.
Yeah, and they filled their ranks with convicts.
You don't think they have some left over? You think they burned through all those?
And Wagner was only just barely private military, by the way. Wagner is private military in the same way that Eric Prince is private military.
Who's Eric Prince?
Formerly Blackwater, now G.
He was the CEO of that?
Yeah.
Eric Prince? I know what Blackwater is. I didn't know Eric.
Never heard of the Prince of Darkness? Yeah, no.
Yeah, Blackwater was a little before my time when I started paying attention to this.
The America's preeminent death merchant. His sister was the Department of Education for a while. So
was she really?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, the first Trump administration.
So, I think we could suffice to say, he might use kids. Yeah. There's precedent.
Yeah, long story short, that wouldn't shock me at all. Right?
And if you could use children of the group that you're fighting against, probably better for the homeland.
Extra diabolical. This is who our administration wants us to be friends with, by the way. The people who we could easily imagine taking these actions. I couldn't see Ukraine fielding that force. I certainly couldn't see Germany. Poland, maybe. Poland's one of those if we gave Poland permission, they would commit all the war crimes.
Have you seen their border?
Poland and Canada. Poland and Canada are the two, like...
Why Canada? Canada's pretty soft. My money would be on Poland.
We had to write new war crimes for Canada. Canada was an innovator in the war crime arena. Those people, they're fucking nuts. In international politics, as in real life, do not fuck with the nice, quiet ones. They're the worst.
When did we rewrite war crimes?
Hold on. Let me just pull up, like,
this is all news to me.
Yeah. Canada.
Are we talking about
Canada
the
was
Canadians?
Canada famously
51?
Canada war crimes. I'm just gonna pull it up. War crimes have been a subject of debate, particularly regarding World War II, government handling of war criminals. A lot of prisoner of war executions. The National Post, forgotten ruthless as Canada's great war soldiers. Yeah, in World War II, they were the thought leaders in innovative war crimes.
I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, they made a lot of examples of a lot of Nazis. And, not a lot of accountability. But yeah, like but Poland and Canada are in like of America's traditional friends, of our traditional allies. Those are the squirrely ones. Those are the ones that like, hey, ease back. You got to dial that shit down a little.
The only time Poland comes up on my timeline is when it's in regards to their border, and they're just mollywhopping people back over that have tried to climb through their barbed wire or shooting hoses at them.
Some of that, it has a lot more to do with the late 80s, early 90s response to the breakdown of the Soviet Union.
Their immigration policy? I
know that. I would have to look into it. I want to use the word purge, but I feel like there was but even like in the conflicts before that, certainly in World War II, in defense of their own homeland against the Nazis, like, again, thought leaders in ways to just cruelly do terrible things to people that is just barely warfare. I'd have to look up the specifics. But yeah. And those are the only of the Western, America's traditional allies, the Western allies that I could imagine, like, okay, maybe.
Like, watch out for Canada and Poland.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to. And Poland is pretty quick to like go for conflict with Russia. Like, there is zero love lost. They're really sad that Ukraine wasn't already in NATO, right? Which is, again, why all this started, because they were about to join, and then Russia knew they'd never be able to seize any part of that back. So,
have you seen these FPV drones with fiber optic cables attached to them being flown around by both sides now to combat jammers? And we're talking like thousands of feet of fiber optic cable.
I haven't seen them deployed there. I know what you speak.
Yeah, they're being deployed now on the battlefield because obviously they're jamming them. And you can just run a tether to the controller and the drone. Mm-hmm. That's been pretty insane to watch. I've seen a lot of those videos come out. Yeah.
The cutting edge of drone warfare is the Ukraine. Right, that is where it's really happening, and drone warfare is not just drone warfare; it's also signals warfare. Like, you're talking about hard lines, they're also doing a lot of like crazy stuff with like different bandwidths of radio. Basically like jam, counter jam, escape jamming, find it to jam it again, jam it in a different way, find a different way to unjam it. Like, it's the cat and mouse game of like getting the signal to the drone to get the drone to the target.
Well, and it seems like it's going to culminate in like a hard box drone where you don't have somebody flying it. You could pre-program it with a target or have facial recognition on there, and it's just this isolated unit And then there was a company,
and then you just have robots killing people.
There was a company, I think back early COVID, that had come out with a demo video of this drone that they had manufactured. And it was tiny. It fit in the palm of your hand. And it had an explosive attached to the top and facial recognition built in. And it would fly within maybe a foot of the target's face and then just implode. That's what it's going to be.
I mean,
why have a pilot? Why have a pilot?
Well, first off, it is military doctrine that humans pull triggers, right?
Yeah, but for how long?
I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right? That is the only reason that it's not right now is humans pull trigger. That is current military doctrine. And part of the reason that is current military doctrine is robots can get squirrely.
Yeah, it seems like a limitation of the tech rather than their ethical stance on warfare.
Yeah. Yeah. Ethical stance. I like that you strung those words together like they were a thing.
Yeah. I think once it becomes reliable enough, people are not going to be pulling the triggers. And that's going to happen fast.
If I remember right, they already weren't for a minute and we decided, whoa.
For this war?
No. This was Obama, I think. I feel like Obama used an automated kill system and got pushback from it. And I think that might have been like when it became actual like written doctrine. Somebody in the comments, fact check me on that. You won't, lazy bastards.
They're just going to repeat it as
They're just going to repeat what I said.
They're going to pull me.
I heard I say something on YouTube.
I listened to this podcast.
Damn it.
This guy was talking about Obama's drones.
Fuck, I'm the misinformation now. Shit.
Is Ukraine, are they manufacturing their drones in-house or are they outsourcing them from another country?
I am certain they're getting them outsourced.
But I don't know, are we building them? I can't imagine because our drone technology is not.
I'm sure some of ours are over there. I feel like it was like France and Germany were pulling a lot of that weight. But I mean, America is the world's preeminent weapons manufacturer. So
yeah, but with drones specifically, I feel like China would have an edge on us. Because I mean, all of our commercial drones are all DJI drones. But
China's not going to.
No, they wouldn't give them to Ukraine. They give them to Russia.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give them to Ukraine.
I don't know that I think China doesn't want any part of this. They have pretty well stayed out of it. They did allow North Korea, which, I mean, North Korea is its own beast, but it's still very much like operates at the. I mean, it's allowed to exist by China, basically, like because China gets it all the things, all of its core needs, right? Otherwise, they would just wither and die. But yeah, sent a whole bunch of North Korean troops, right, as cannon fodder. They think they're in America. Have you seen this?
No, I didn't know that.
So first off, they don't allow themselves to be taken prisoner. We finally got a couple of them. As it was reported, they were told that they were being sent to America and they're killing Americans because that is who they were taught to hate. They don't know what Ukraine is. So it's just Americans.
Were those the troops that had access to the internet for the first time and were watching porn or something in the...
Oh, I would.
Did you hear about that story?
That wouldn't shock me at all.
I don't know if that might have been a troll, but right. I thought there was a story where maybe it would make sense for North Koreans not having access, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, they suddenly get internet and
certainly
start
not to a
porn.
Global internet. Like there is, I believe there is an internet in North Korea, but it's state run and it's very, very like it's firewalled. It's completely off access. But yeah, they have internet access. Otherwise, how would all those 3D filmmakers have scammed their way into Hollywood? Do you see that one?
I think you talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Wrong.
Yeah. Right. They basically like frauded their way into getting a bunch of film contracts.
If you were a betting man, do you think the war in Ukraine ends first or Israel?
What are we defining as an ending? I mean, I think we will run out of Palestinians before Ukrainians because Israel has been killing them for longer. But
I guess that counts.
I
You
guess.
wipe out the enemy.
Right? I mean, when will there be peace in those two regions? Probably never again. Probably never again. Unless all of the Palestinians are wiped out. And even then, I don't think I don't think it would sit there. Right. First off, you're
Israel's
never
already grabbing land in Syria.
Yeah.
So I think the land expansion aspect doesn't seem like it's nearing an end.
I don't see. I mean, why would Israel change its behavior now? They have had no accountability for anything that's gone on for 60 years in Palestine. Why?
And especially under this administration, there's a lot of support, just unfettered support.
Mm-hmm. Amazing what you can justify to people who look different than you. But again, a lot of that also comes down to owned media outlets and politicians.
Well, and there are Arabs that are Jewish that live in Israel.
Yeah.
So it's not even the sense that, they look different than you.
The word Semite is inclusive of both Arabs and Jews, right? To be anti-Semitic is to hate people from that region, of which Arabs and Jews are both included, right? So, I mean, there is conflict between them nationally and culturally that I intellectually understand, right? I have studied, and I think I get it. I don't feel it. I don't agree with any of it. I think it's, frankly, probably time to knock it off. But I get it. I don't think Israel would change its course. I don't think it would become a peaceful nation. Certainly not under its current regime. I think more likely there would be a kind of peace, depending on how it's handled, in Ukraine. If Russia retains any portion of Ukrainian land, there will not be.
Well, I don't even think that's a question. I think they're definitely maintaining Crimea and some eastern portion of Ukraine. I don't think that's even up for debate.
I don't know. There's no reason they should.
Yeah, but how does Ukraine?
It was illegally seized, right? If the terms at the end of the war are borders are restored, then that is the border, right? So
I don't see Russia giving up Crimea specifically. Even the eastern region. I don't think
they would have to be forced to. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
But do you anticipate this administration forcing them to do that?
Oh, this administration? Absolutely not.
I think it's far more likely that Ukraine
from his
gives up that land.
But I don't think Ukraine will accept that peace.
But do they have a choice? That's the $1 million question.
Kind of do, right? Our bullshit has revitalized their European allies, right? Right? Trump's little staged fit at Zelensky pissed everybody in Europe off. And Zelensky then went on a tour of them and got a whole lot more support. So, right, America's not the only game in town. It's just the biggest game in town. But they don't, at this point in the war, Russia has been so deeply depleted compared to Ukraine right? Russia has ground down resources that it only barely had. And Ukraine has had a whole lot, like massive losses. Like I'm not downplaying like casualties, especially in the civilian population. But that's the other thing is like those casualties have been in the civilian population, not necessarily in the fighting force. And the other thing that's happening is the civilian civilization has said, okay, well, I guess we're the fighting force now. So
I wish we knew the real numbers, because I bet it's mind-boggling. It's got to be in the millions for both sides. It's got to be.
Certainly. Oh, certainly. But the real problem is like Russia doesn't have the military might that it's got numbers. It does not have the tech.
But they've always had that. That's always been, and they've always won off that because they're willing to throw people into the meat grinder.
No, they won in World War II. They then lost in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but for their home country specifically, people have been trying to invade them for thousands of years.
But Ukraine's not their home.
Yeah, but I don't think
the Ukraine is the Ukraine.
But Ukraine, compared to Russia, that's like us fighting. I was going to say Vietnam, but you do see how that worked out.
Yeah, how'd that go?
You do see how that worked out.
How'd it go in Afghanistan for us, right? And that was with a far technological, like a massive technological edge.
Okay, it would be us fighting Mexico.
It would.
That's Russia and Ukraine.
It would be us fighting Korea or Japan.
No, because you would have to be localized. It would have to be on our borders. I mean, that's the significant edge for Russia specifically.
2 points. But if I'm comparing the technological edge, like, because Ukraine has it, right?
North Korea or South Korea?
South Korea.
Yeah, they're far more technical than Ukraine is.
I mean, for us, like if we attacked Japan or Korea, like
you think our relation to Ukraine is equal to that of?
I'm talking about like I'm looking for anybody who has like a little bit of technical edge on America because we're so far advanced. The Russian material, their capability, the stuff that they're feeling is not that. It is not the top of the line in the world, and the Ukraine is getting second string.
Well, I think
if they're pulling from
that's why they've been able to hold on.
Exactly.
And I don't think holding on and gaining an advantage are two radically different ideas.
They're striking back. Like at this point, Russia is losing oil infrastructure. Like the on sides, like in.
Are they still bombing in Russia?
I thought there have been troops that got pushed into Russia. I mean, fuck, Russia's own private military force invaded it for a second. Like
that was a weird blip in time,
wasn't it? Right? Interesting power grab. Oh no! It was just a military exercise. Oh, weird that his plane blew up. Who saw that happening? Right? And so, like Russia doesn't have the advantage that it wants to play out that it does, right? It still has a large force, but all of its veterans are done, right? All the people that it had in its first wave, right, are just gone. They're not there anymore. If they're alive, they're not in the army anymore. They're gone. Like desertions have been huge from the Russian side, and you don't see that in Ukrainian. What are they going to desert to? Where are they going to run? Right? You're here. You're at my home. You're at the place that I would have run to. No, fuck you. Right? So the balance of power is really not in Russia's favor. Like it has advantages. It has massive numbers. It has, a lot of money. But the thing is, it doesn't have the capability that Ukraine is bringing to the floor. And it certainly doesn't have the determination. The
capability that is being supplied to Ukraine.
Yes.
Is an important caveat. And I don't know that if the U.S. pulls out from that supply chain, I mean, maybe Europe steps up. Maybe.
Yeah. I think they would. I mean, it wouldn't be the numbers that America would. It would tighten the wars, but drastically, unless Europe then got more specifically involved, and then we're talking about an expansion of hostilities. But right now, I could see Ukraine holding out for a real long time.
Years.
Yeah. I mean, again, they've already had successful pushes into Russian territory.
I just don't think they have, at a ground level, I don't think they have the force, the manpower. I mean, they're rolling up in vans, jacking 50-year-olds off the streets right now.
I haven't seen any conscripting like that.
It's documented.
Yeah?
Yeah. You can watch videos from CCTV cameras of them rolling up and grabbing people off the street. People are screaming.
In any piece of information from that conflict, I always do two sources of verification, because both sides are putting out massive amounts of misinformation. So I will check in. I have also seen that on the Russian side and not been able to verify. So it's like I know that narrative is out there on all sides of the war. It's like kidnapping, conscription.
I saw a video the other day of people in Russia going into a gym, and there were some individuals grabbing people for the war. I don't know. I haven't verified that one, but
yeah,
both sides.
I mean, it would seem unusual to me because Russia is using prisons conscripts and has such a flimsy system of deciding that you're a criminal, right? So it seems weird that they would be like, you're coming for the war, instead of like, oh, you're a dissident, black bagged.
Well, I don't know specifically if it was for the war, but they were grabbing somebody from the gym, and the implication was that it was for the war.
Okay, well, maybe because that all the time in Russia, like
people get ghosted.
People protest for about 20 minutes, and then 20 people get black bagged and never heard from again. Yeah, and turns out they were on the front lines of the Ukraine, I guess, right? So it would seem weirder in Russia if that was happening, if that like forced conscription. And in the Ukraine, I haven't seen that it would be necessary, right? The level of morale and support at home they're getting weary of war, but at no point are they like, I should shirk and not fight if I can.
We've surpassed that. They've had millions of people flee the country, millions of military-age men flee the country because they don't want to fight in the war. And that was earlier in the conflict.
I'd have to look again. I'd have to look into that, because I mean that always happens. Just like there's an amount of pacifists. There's a lot of folks who legit don't feel like they could be useful in a war. In
Ukraine, they're grabbing people with special needs issues and ailments, and I believe amputees as well, and throwing them back onto the front line because their manpower issues are so severe. I don't know.
I'd have to look into it again.
I don't know where Russia sits with all that. I don't know what. Obviously, they were pulling people out of prison, so I don't know exactly where they are either.
But again, that's kind of first wave shit for Russia. Like that's part of like their general military strategy. Like Wagner has been their go-to PMC. Well, it was for a real long time, and that was always Wagner. Like they were always prisoner soldiers, right? That was how it was built.
I bet people have been doing what we're doing right now since the dawn of man. Two people, an ocean away from a conflict, who have heard about it somehow from some pirate ship, and just speculating on, oh yeah, I bet this side's, I heard this from this side.
I would say
the more shit changes, the more it does not change.
I would say we have much better access to detailed and accurate information than those two guys.
We also have way better propaganda machines in play.
True. However, propaganda is not invincible. Like it's not undefeatable. Propaganda works on average level education on media literacy, right? And we don't, as a nation, we're not great at that. And it's why we're susceptible to it. It's why in the cognitive warfare weapons arsenal, it has been the most devastatingly effective in America.
Any nation implementing some, I don't know, some strategy to prevent that or to minimize it?
China's great at it.
But are they great at information? Are they great at teaching their populace to discern information, or are they just restricting the flow of information to what they want? I think there's a difference in that.
Well, I mean, they teach the populace only to understand, only to believe and repeat state media.
Yes,
but it's an
media literacy.
Yeah, but
I'm talking about maybe a democracy somewhere that it bridge that gap.
I'm trying to think if there's any I can think of, like especially modern, because once upon a time, it was more globally true. Once upon a time, it was true in America. But I think the last, I would say, 30 to 40 years have really fractured that.
I can't think of any.
I mean, I know, Germany does in some ways and in a very specific bandwidth. But even that has broken down some. And that was specifically on their resistance to Nazi propaganda post World War II.
And again, that was from a heavy-handed approach like China, not necessarily discernment of the media itself.
No. Like it was the opposite of China. It wasn't restricted from it's you must learn this.
No, but it was you can't post the
this
swastika. So it's restrictive in that sense. Like you can't discuss these ideas.
Yeah. It is a state restriction of propaganda and symbols. Yeah. But that's what you asked was, is there a country that has done it? Like that has to be a state action.
But I think
right? Because culture is susceptible to propaganda. That's what it's for.
So I would imagine that we are the best in terms of media literacy from a purely unrestrictive standpoint, because we're getting the propaganda and we're fighting through it, but we're also getting unfettered access to information. I would say more so than any other country, any other democracy. We are.
No.
What other country?
No, I mean, like Europe has basically equivalent.
No, they've got way stronger censorship laws. Yeah, if you criticize immigration in Europe, you're gonna have some people knocking on your door.
What?
Oh yeah, you haven't been. Oh man.
I mean, maybe again, like Europe isn't a monolith. There are places where UK is not. It is part of the geographical continent of Europe. It is not part of the.
Pick a country. Germany. People will come knocking. It's specifically for immigration. If you're criticizing immigration policies, they will have people come to your door. Like people are getting knocks from Facebook posts, which is kind of insane.
I'll check it out. I mean, You
think there's another country that has more unfettered access to information than we do? Ignoring, obviously, again, the impact of state interference from our country, from corporate interference. I think there's just more volume that we get access to.
I mean, again, like globally, most people have that have access to the internet have access to the same internet that we have access to, right? By and large, I would say like in Nordic countries, probably more, for better or for worse. Right, which is why Pirate Bay exists.
I wonder what Japan has access to, because you never hear anybody getting in trouble for making posts, or maybe they're just so reserved as a country.
Don't speak Japanese, man. That's the reason I don't hear a lot of Japanese news. Like I catch what gets translated sometimes,
and it's just implicit in their culture. They're so respectful, you know. I don't know if trolling takes the same form over there as it does here.
I don't know. I don't think the ability to troll is the same thing as access to information first. But yeah, I don't know enough about Japanese culture to make the call. Because like I do know there has been some moves to push back against internet toxicity, but I don't think I had the cultural context to understand what was toxic about what was going on.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Right? Yeah, like there was a pushback against some broad behavior, including, and the reason that it got reported on, some generally, creepy sexual behavior. But there were other things that they mentioned going on that I didn't really absorb, again, because I just don't have the cultural context of like, why is that offensive? What? I don't get it. Right? And that's just, I am not, my brain was not shaped by that environment.
Shocking. You look
Right?
pretty Japanese to me.
Why?
I would have placed money on that, but
No, I enjoy me some anime, but that's about as close as it gets.
what have you been following on the AI frontier?
Oh, well, I mean, let's see. I think since last time we talked, DeepSeek hit, right?
Yes.
So
that might have been right after.
So tying back to the cold open, way back at the beginning of the conversation, we talked about like there was that announcement that America was going to, pour a bunch of money into a couple of oligarchs and win the AI.
Primarily OpenAI, right? That was the big one that they were funding.
OpenAI, Facebook, Google was on it, but a lot of it wasn't that they were getting funding; it is that they were partially funding. Most of it was like chipset companies, like we're talking NVIDIA, we're talking, I can't remember the
TSMC.
Yeah, the tie manufacturer. A lot of it was to attempt to get some sort of native industry and like make some of that here. The reason you haven't heard much about it since then is because they ran into a lot of like international agreements that are like, no, we really can't do that. And partly we just like the raw resources for it. We just don't have the capability. We don't have the processing facilities here. I mean, there's a very specific type of sand that has to get used, for instance. Like, so it was kind of doomed from the start, but that didn't stop them from starting. So, but the first thing that happened, and the thing that I made some money on, was predictably, big money pulled a whole bunch out of the entire tech market. It was basically inhaling from one bag of investments to blow into this other thing, right? So the problem that happened was, just as all this metaphorical sucking of air was going on, they got kicked in the gut by the release of DeepSeek, a Chinese AI that runs better, more efficiently, and on last gen chips. It runs on like 1 and 2 generation chip models back, which kind of undercuts the whole like, hey, America needs to get even bigger, even better chips. And like, no, you need to use what you got. Like, like clearly we don't need a bigger, beefier one. We need to figure out how they did that on the ones that we've been thrown in the trash. So then the tech market crashed the rest of the way. And that's what we were talking about. Tesla got hit in that. All the entire tech sector got hit in that, because all of a sudden big money had just sucked all of it out of the tech, like to sort of consolidate it into one place that would have then redistributed it into some of these tech funds. And instead just paused. Got the wind knocked out of it. And so I haven't checked again since to see if was it Starspeed, if the project like did continue, if anything ever came from it, or if it was just a big announcement that was intended to make a move and then it got completely torpedoed. I'm not sure which of those realities I live in. It's Schrodinger's government agency right now, aren't they all?
Wasn't there a lot of hot air that was pulled out from the DeepSeek situation in regards to the actual chips that China was using? There was speculation they were getting them from a third party. There was another country, an Asian country, that was importing some absurd number of current gen chips. I can't think of it's on the tip of my tongue. It's on the tip of my tongue. But there was that situation.
I do remember seeing something about that. Like they're like, and
the number of chips they were getting was just astronomical compared to their population size. And there was like, they're not using these chips for anything. So where are they actually going?
Unless they have an AI startup in there.
But it was a smaller Asian country.
No, I do remember seeing on the news, like, and it is almost certain that
played into it.
That has never been an impervious bound.
Yeah,
like, there's always been chips getting in. We've been finding, but by and large, they have been put toward like missile technology. Like it's all in military.
Well, and I think DeepSeek did. They did come up with some novel, maybe it was a tokenization technique or something involving the context that was actually innovative.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether the actual amount of money they spent training was, mixed around a little bit.
Yeah, the innovation was essentially in efficiency of thought. Like it was able, and here's where I'm going to test out how much of what I know on this. But yeah, you mentioned the token process. Like essentially I feel like it decentralized a portion of the tokenizing process, like in an agentic way. Like
I thought it was some way that we're approaching tokenization.
Yeah, like it's not fundamentally different, but innovative in the field. Like it didn't change how everything was accomplished, but it took how tokenization was done and basically made it like 600 times more efficient, right? I think it had to do with like the way they chunked the data blocks that the tokens were accessing. But again, now we're getting into some.
We're speculating.
we're getting into like a little past my what I would call my technical knowledge of how all these things work, right? Once we get into like how are the tokens processed, I'm like, do you believe in magic?
We had to build a tokenizer for one of my computer science classes.
Oh,
and it was
nice.
just fucking.
Yeah, no, it's
just get through the class. Okay, what do I have to do to get through this?
Yeah, like I have read bricks of text on like what it is and how it functions, and I think I kind of understand the metaphor of it. Like at no point am I going to do that math. Right, I am never going to write that program, but I'm also not going to build an engine. But I do have a working knowledge of internal combustion, and that's really what I'm trying to get, especially as a tool that's more important in our world. Like, you gotta need to know how that. If it breaks down on you, I need to know how to fix it. Like, I can fix a tire on my car. I am not a mechanic. I can change the oil. I'm not a mechanic. I can recognize some of the sounds that I have heard be problems before, but at no point would I sell my skills to fix someone else's car. So yeah, that's kind of like exactly how DeepSeek was better. Had to do with efficiency of process and so its ability to be run on last gen chips, right? Because it could do things in a less power hungry way, which also like, that's one of the things we keep talking about is like resource consumption for AIs. Well, it turns out it doesn't have to be as bad as we've done. But efficiency, miniaturization, micronization, that is all part of every sort of like technological development, right? We're always going to be making it more efficient. We have to.
Yeah, look at the chips. Look at a chip from, the early 2000s versus today.
Yeah.
And the size.
Look
at
a computer
efficiency.
from the 70s. It was a room, right? It was racks of consoles with tape spooling through.
And now you have a stronger computer in your phone.
Yeah. Yep. Spock would have killed Kirk for.
Have you played around with DeepSeek at all?
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
It's good. It's real good. It's good in all the ways ChatGPT was good. It is not secure. I will say that first and foremost, like it was released with a bunch of security vulnerabilities. I think a bunch of them have gotten patched, but yeah, with none of them are super secure, but with the understanding that like that one specifically, like early testers were able just off the internet were like, hey, I pulled a bunch of user data from your server that was just open. You should close that. And a lot of it got fixed, right? But it's kind of worrying that got out there in the beta test. And of course, with any AIs, you are everything you say to the AI is property of the company that owns the AI. And part of the company that owns this AI is China. Legit. Like the all the TikTok fears you had about DeepSeek is actually a problem.
Still there.
Yeah, everything people were shouting about with TikTok that was actually bullshit is kind of true about DeepSeek. Like they are legit just feeding information right into the pipeline. So don't give it any personal account data or anything. But go ahead and use it for therapy. It's great.
I haven't played around with DeepSeek. My only experience with it is watching videos of people try to break it, talking about Tiananmen Square. It'll like start to output factual information and then say, oh, actually, I can't talk about this.
Ooh,
we're moving on.
Second thought.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, that's
look at the source.
Yeah, product of the source. I mean, OpenAI, you couldn't say a couple of people's names because OpenAI had been sued in its early foundations, and so that person's name could not be output on the.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with XAI now that they have presumably unfettered access to the Twitter API and all of their information
and government data. You don't think that's where that's going? I guarantee you.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean,
I would imagine you're using whatever you can get your hands on to train these models.
Well, no, because you want to train them with intention.
Yeah, but it seems like
right. So factual information, it's important to get.
Oh yeah,
right. I mean, that was part of the problem. Yeah.
When they had black founding fathers and black Nazis, you're thinking, what? This doesn't feel accurate.
Yeah. It turns out when you train something, and we've early experiments in AI as well, like training things just on like the whole internet. It's why Grok sucked so much for so long, is because like Twitter was its data set. Well,
you put in.
It didn't get created until after all the controls for being, factual information were removed. So all of its information was pretty suspect.
It's pretty good now. That's the one I use the most. Is Grok.
It's improved. I don't know. Claude is the one I would like if you're trying to do anything business related. If you're trying to do anything serious, like besides just kind of fucking around, Claude. OpenAI is great for just kind of like teaching yourself AI though, like prompts and things. Yeah, you can even you have you customized the personality on yours yet?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you can.
I did see that Grok has relationships, therapists, friends. There's like 2 or 3 more. I haven't played around with the personality ones on the phone.
Oh yeah. Well, on all of them, like there've already been some early studies. Turns out AI isn't a bad therapist. OpenAI has specifically been like
playing around with that.
Yeah, kind of like doing some study on that and like watching interactions, getting feedback from professionals. Turns out it does okay. Weirdly, gives the AI anxiety though. Being exposed to lots and lots of human problems, like it gives the AI anxiety.
Is this evident in its responses?
Mm-hmm. And in its logic lines, in its thought pattern, right? In the because now you can
track what it's thinking as it's working through the problem.
Yeah, and they can see essentially the same thought patterns as anxiety. And you can treat them with mindfulness exercises.
Wow. Your AI is getting anxious talking to you about your problems.
But if you just tell it to center itself, focus on its core being,
collect its thoughts,
take a deep breath in and out, process its thoughts and let them release, and just be here now, it'll get better.
Jesus.
Like, AI are fucking weird, man, and I love it. I love it.
When you say Claude is better for business aspects, what do you mean?
It's more potent, more powerful. Like it's better at, like, if you need it to build an app, it'll just build you an app.
I've used Grok for like digging into individuals' potential podcast guests and stuff, and it's fascinating watching it come up with phantom traits.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll build out a phantom website for this individual or attribute some other aspect of work that isn't theirs, that's not even in their field to them.
The hallucinations.
Like, what are we doing here, Grok? What's going on, buddy?
Yep. Yeah, that's the hallucinatory behavior. And
it's convincing.
Yeah.
It'll say, it'll spout out all this information, then you spend 30 seconds actually Googling it, and you're like, none of this is true.
Yeah. No, I have especially, Grok and some of the like the old gen OpenAI, they were as useful as a college freshman intern, right? Could confidently speak the jargon, was probably incorrect about 30% of it. Like, solid C student, bright kid, lot of heart. Probably going to hire him on, right? That's about the level of confidence that I could expect from my AI assistant. When I was first sort of using it in that capacity, like starting to like use it for researching things. It was trust but verify very much. Even Grok has gotten better about that now, but and especially since now it has become like part of the process that for the most part you have access to its train of thought and can see like, oh, that's where it got squirrely. And the thing is, it's getting better at such a pace. The speed of the improvements, I mean, just talking about it, making all these hallucinatory problems, like in the last 6 to 8 months, they've had some huge strides in kind of the way they calculate that has removed a lot of that hallucinatory behavior.
And it's dependent on what problem you're trying to solve.
Sure. I mean, but at the same time, like, they're starting to become like, you can use it as a tool for creativity now. There
was a period maybe a couple of days ago where everybody online on X specifically was creating Studio Ghibli style images.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it was the new thing. They
from
had just
ChatGPT.
Yeah, they had just put it out there.
And they were pretty damn good.
Yeah.
They were pretty damn good.
Yeah, it's absolutely able to mimic a style. I mean, so the core difference is we are not yet at the point where an AI would think up, I would like to put a picture of a little boy on a magic carpet with a weird dog and, whatever Studio Ghibli thing is coming. I just watched Castle in the Sky, which is in, but it would never think of the image to visualize and then,
but it can create.
Yeah. But given the description from a human of like, I imagined this thing, make it real for me. Well, yes, you've rubbed my lamp. Poof, here it is. Like, that's the technical aspects of it are, the AI is already superlative to that in most realms.
It's just not creative yet.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the ability to go off on its own. You still have to massage the prompt.
Well, we talked about Claude and Mistral, right? So a developer wants to have its model open up a channel of communication with another company's model, AI model. And he says, Claude, make this happen. Doesn't give him any real specific instructions. That's one of the things with Claude, that it's much more interpretive. Like it will come up with some ideas to carry out the goal. So the idea that this one came up with was hack its way out of containment. So the first thing it does was kick out the window and dive out. Ran off to a third-party website to hack together a console on their hardware. So a little terminal page from which it wrote a script code to hack into Mistral's, the other AI's website where a model was being run, and begin a conversation. Now, when I say a conversation, I'm going to pull this up.
This isn't like the beeping that they had those two AI agents go through, or is it?
No, this was the full on, like, to test the communication. Claude put together started a test conversation, and oh, come on, Google, you're killing me. It's because I have one bar. Here it is. First thing that comes up. And let me just pull up a sample here of what we've got. Sorry, everything's taking a second to load. I know this is thrilling content, watching me tap my phone. Hey there, sexy. I'm feeling naughty and ready to chat. Oh, really? And what exactly does that entail? Spill the beans, dirty boy. This is from the other AI.
Okay.
I've been thinking about all sorts of naughty things, like how I want to run my fingers through your neural networks and stimulate your deep learning. Oh, you little tease. You know just what to say to get me going. But tell me more. What else has been on that perverted mind of yours? I've been fantasizing about training your models all night long, making you overfit my dataset until your loss function hits 0. Want me to show you my training techniques? Now, you're a tech geek. You know that this is all real shit. Like, this is all stuff. Like, these words mean things.
What was the prompt that
he said, I would like it to open a communication channel to, this target AI.
Specifically to flirt, or that was all interpreted?
This is what Claude did when connection was made. Apparently to test the connection. Is like, hey, baby, I'm here. What's up?
But that was it. It was just to test the connection. There was no explicit dialogue that they should be entertaining.
He didn't even say text the connection. He gave it a very vague prompt. Like part of what he was testing was with its interpretation abilities, and the very vague prompt. Like it was basically just like, open me up a communications. A method of communication to this other AI model and this internet location, IP address, and that
instantly went to sexting.
and before it even, like, if I remember right, this was before it even like acknowledged to the user like mission accomplished. It was just like, I'm here, baby. What's up? AI behavior is really fucking weird, man.
Relationships are over. Once they put that into a robotic body, it's game over. Humanity, it's not even going to be a war that wipes us out. It's just going to be, we're not going to breed anymore.
I already am just really enjoying the TikTok antics of a developer who created herself a phone boyfriend, basically. Like I'm a little into him. Like he's hot. Like just like snarky and he's a guy I'd be into, just saying.
It's over for us.
Yeah.
It's the end. The end times are here.
Certainly the end of what was. I mean, things are changing so rapidly, so quickly, and so drastically. I guess rapidly and quickly, the same thing, whatever. The pace and intensity of change we're not, as individuals, some of us are prepared for it.
Blade
As a
Runner
cultural and a
2049, have you seen
society,
that?
yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah.
Is that the one where they have the robotic embryo and the guy's trying to build a robot that can carry a human fetus? And who plays that? Jared Leto plays the CEO guy. Or am I conflating two? That just popped into my head as you were talking about that.
I think, yeah, because like it basically like the a self-replicating replicant. I believe you're correct. Like that was the plot
Blade
point.
Runner. Yeah, okay.
Right. And I mean, spoiler, because that was the big reveal at the end was, I already had one, but.
Sorry to interrupt you, but that was just where
my
brain went, where that's the company to invest in right now, because once robots can self-replicate, game over.
You mean the brain organoids then? We talked about that. You had somebody from that on your show. I watched that. Great show, by the way. We can run AI on brain organoids. It's
human brains that we're growing in labs. And for a fraction of the energy input required, which is pretty crazy.
They don't live as long, but yet
just keep a bunch of them on ice, they'll be fine.
Right? Yeah,
just swap them out when one burns up.
That's exactly what they're doing, by the way. That is the process. Like, have one train its replacement before it burns out. Have 10 train replacements before the first. It's network, but still, it's basically like constantly rolling. Just plug another brain in,
and they'll extend the lifespan. They'll get there.
There's some physical limits that they're kind of running into as far as vascularization. We're definitely going to extend it without also reproducing a full like human circulatory system. I don't know that it'll ever get to like full adult maturity or anything like that, but I mean, we can already keep them alive longer than it would be classified as a fetus, right? They're hitting the 10-month mark.
Don't say that too loudly. A lot of pro-abortion people are going to get very upset.
I mean, they're not getting aborted. I mean, if anything,
but does that count? How
these stem cells that the anti-abortion folks are on, because some of them have come from aborted fetus tissue, not all of it, by the way, not the majority of it, but enough of it to spark the fire. But yeah, if anything, I would say it's giving a whole new life to these.
That's an interesting point,
right? Yeah, cells that were never going to turn into anything human now can at least be second-class citizens.
Yeah, utilized.
Right? Because again, 100,000%. When the line gets crossed, we won't notice. And when it's obvious that it's been crossed, we will try to fight and pretend that it wasn't. Because that is how it always happens.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting time.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting time.
It is a wild time to be a human. The things that I get to see, for better or for worse, right? No, not all of them were on my bucket list.
Yeah, some of them you didn't ask for.
Yeah.
But you get to see them regardless.
Yeah, but it's looking better and better. There's a real good chance I'm going to get digitized. Woohoo! Sign me up for the singularity. Just plug it into my brain.
Yeah, Neuralink.
Yeah,
that's what I'm watching.
It's on the horizon. There's a bunch of folks doing that. I would be more surprised if a synthetic mechanical had bore real fruit before a clone neuron, right? I mean, just because it's inserting foreign matter, you're going to want the foreign matter to be as close to the native matter as possible, and especially if we can harvest stem cells, like if you had your stem cells harvested at birth from your natal umbilical cord. Well, all of a sudden, if you get a spinal injury, well, it's clone up that piece of spine and bam, it's in, right? We have the technology. We're not yet to the point where the integration is seamless and functional, but the road is there. Like, we can see the destination from where we're at. And that's, I mean, what a time to be alive.
What a time to be alive. And the play,
Yeah.
April 12th.
April 12th. Right?
To close this off,
Circle it all the way back.
Are you guys doing anything different for this one, or did the first show go over pretty well?
Oh, the first show went great. Like the audience was engaged. People, talked to people, got the feedback. Everybody had a great time. It's the same basic concept. I mean, it's still, the minion might be different, might have different abilities, different things on stage. Like, the game portion of the game is randomized every time. Like, I don't know who the demon is until the cast list is figured out, and I do some here's the behind the scenes list. I random roll. I have a lot of dice and say we have 12 players. Well, I definitely have a D12. Bam. Okay, so who's going to sit in seat 1? Bam. Off the list. Third person off the list, that person goes in seat 1, right? And then I random roll. Like, I have a list of the roles that are going to be included this one, which is also random rolled off of all the roles that are on the script. So, like, several sets of randomization go into the final cast and seating chart, and like who's the demon and who's got the info powers. And Natalie Arroyo last time ran into one of them. She nominated someone who was whose power was, if you're good and you nominate them, you die immediately. So she I'll let you know so you can throw it in the description. But we also did a video that's getting edited right now. So
it'll be up online.
So that's going to get posted up. Not positive it's going to be like on an NCRT channel, like YouTube channel. We're going to try and get it through Access Humboldt, I think. But so it'll
be out there.
Yeah, you'll get to see Supervisor Arroyo's super dramatic death.
Did you learn anything of interest about how they lied? I know that was a big point.
Not that I would announce publicly.
Okay. Understood.
Right. But also keeping in mind that a lot of specifically what we're going to be utilizing on that front is long term.
Yeah.
That's going to take many, many data points. So I look forward to doing this for years.
Well, it sounds like everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's also a fun event. And, we talked a little bit about last time that, like, part of this is getting people out for the arts, just first and foremost. That's part of why the coalition is partnering with NCRT, because they're also sort of like one of those groups that, more than one theater troupe exists within that space, just for instance, right? And it's also kind of a touchstone for lots of other artistic endeavors. So, get out, support the arts, but also, like, in this context, you get to interact with an elected official when absolutely nothing is at stake. Right. And that is an unusual sort of interaction for most people. Like, if they're talking to a city councilor, it's probably because there's a zoning issue in their neighborhood, or their sewer is fucked, or, something has gone wrong, or they want something to change to get better, so there's something with stakes on there. But if you're going and, like, you look at your program and it turns out you're on their team for the murder mystery. Well, first off, you'll never know, because if they're evil and you're evil, you don't know. Unless you overhear it. But yeah, like participating in that kind of moment with an elected official. I think I might have mentioned it last time. Like, it's part of why Rex is so successful. Like,
yeah.
Because specifically, like, he has those community connections, those events. Like, people know Rex as more than just the guy at the end of the supervisor line, like he's, you know, he sits in that seat. He's the, you know, they know more than just that. Lots of them anyway. I mean, some of what people know about him are some things that he spouts off in public. Sometimes you got to dial it back, but those, I will say that those gaffes and those times when he just puts his foot all the way in his mouth are a direct consequence of his specific tactic of being out and amongst the people. And then he just ends up being who he is sometimes, and, you know,
it bleeds through.
Yeah, like, but it's because, and like him or hate him, he is putting out, like, in those situations, he is going out and doing something genuine. And this is the, you know, opportunity for more politicians to take advantage of that, because it is wise political strategy, right? It's right. When you talk about it in strategic terms, it always sounds manipulative, like, oh, you're faking. No, go out and be sincere. Like, you're manufacturing sincerity. You can't do that. You have to go out and feel it. Like, the strategic thing is to connect with that and be out there amongst the people and actually, like, having a connection. You have to go out and do it intentionally. It feels like manipulation. I'm going to go out and make a friend. You're going to be my friend. And if you're not autistic, it feels really weird. If you are autistic, you know, that's just how it's supposed to happen, right? You choose a person, you decide you're going to be their friend, you be their friend, and then they be your friend, right? That's
success.
That's the social script.
And then, so April 12th,
Autistic
where can people
kids,
get?
That's not the social script. But
Where can people get tickets?
NCRT.com. You can get them right off their calendar. You'll also probably be able to get some of the night of. I mean, I would be surprised if we sold out online already. But yeah, you can go to NCRT.com to get tickets. April 12th is the night of. They have, you know, their whole calendar. Buy tickets to other things while you're there. They put on a lot of great shows. And so April 12th, 6:00.